And I actually want to start with overall impressions, guys, because all 7 of you came in undecided. 1 of you said they've made up their mind. Ryan, who are you going to vote for, and what kind of solidified that opinion?
Well, I'm going to be voting for Kamala Harris. You know, one of the stark sort of aspects of that debate that really stuck with me was when they were talking about January 6th and how Mike Pence certified the election, and they were wondering if J.D. Vance would certify the election should Trump lose. And, you know, J.D. Vance didn't really give us a definitive answer, and I'm disappointed in that fact. And I don't think that I can trust someone, you know, with my vote if they're not going to respect it.
J.D. Vance had one job at this debate, to try and claw back some modicum of what Trump lost when he showed up on the debate stage. And judging by the undecided voters themselves, it doesn't look like that happened. In fact, here's another group of undecided voters.
If you were going to say who won tonight, I would say that Tim Walz won.
I wonder, would everybody say that Walz won this debate? A show of hands. No pressure. Okay.
And focus groups aside, the Trump ticket didn't fare much better in the post-debate polls. CNN's immediate poll after the debate had Vance up over Walz by a mere 2 points, effectively showing a tie performance. CBS's poll also had Vance up by an even smaller margin, just 1 point. On the question of whether Walz is qualified to serve as president, he went from 62% before the debate to 65% after the debate. Even more telling, on the favorables, Vance rose 19 points, while Walz rose 23 points. And yet Vance is still underwater at -3 approval. Meanwhile, Walz is at plus 37%. Do you realize how difficult it is to have a plus 37% approval in the year 2024? That would make him one of, if not the most popular politicians in the entire country, made even more popular by this very debate. So while both clearly made inroads at the debate, they're still not in the same universe as far as favorability is concerned. And in large part, the reason why is simply one moment. Vance nearly made it through the entire debate with his smooth-talking style, trying to frame Donald Trump's draconian policies as normal with his verbal gymnastics, until he got to the very end and failed to answer this basic question.
He is still saying he didn't lose the election. I would just ask that. Did he lose the 2020 election?
Tim, I'm focused on the future. Did Kamala Harris censor Americans from speaking their mind in the wake of the 2020 COVID situation?
That is a damning non-answer.
It's a damning non-answer for you to not talk about censorship. Obviously, Donald Trump and I think that there were problems in 2020. We've talked about it. I'm happy to talk about it further.
That's all it took. 20 seconds before it became abundantly clear exactly who J.D. Vance is. Again, he frames himself as the slick alternative to Donald Trump, well-spoken, articulate, calm, but behind the glossy veneer, it is clear that the guy is little more than an empty vessel through which Donald Trump can push the same exact election denialism. Let's be clear, the reason that Vance was on that stage is precisely because of how he answered that question. It's not Mike Pence up there because he wouldn't do what Vance just promised to do. Trump's entire VP vetting process was predicated solely on who would be willing to do his extrajudicial bidding. And Walz himself made that point in real time.
Because look, when Mike Pence made that decision to certify that election, that's why Mike Pence isn't on this stage. What I'm concerned about is, where is the firewall with Donald Trump? Where is the firewall if he knows he could do anything, including taking an election, and his vice president's not going to stand to it? That's what we're asking you, America. Will you stand up? Will you keep your oath of office, even if the president doesn't? And I think Kamala Harris would agree. She wouldn't have picked me if she didn't think I would do that, because of course that's what we would do. So America, I think you've got a really clear choice on this election of who's going to honor that democracy and who's going to honor Donald Trump.
Again, the only reason that Vance was chosen was because he made it clear to Trump that his allegiance to the God King was more important than preserving or protecting American democracy. The notion that these people called themselves patriots is an absolute joke. Here's Lawrence O'Donnell also making that point.
And that was a moment that was coming all night, and I don't know if Tim Walz deliberately held it to that and waited for it to get to that point, but it really was the moment that kind of reshuffled everything, as Nicole says, everything that you thought you had heard in the last 88 minutes or so changed in a way that was very, very, very clear. That there's one person here who is actually capable of dealing with reality, and there's this other person who will say anything, whatever is necessary to say to get through, to thread the Trump needle to get where he has to be on whatever the question is.
Again, Vance put in 88 minutes of work, but it took 20 seconds to sink himself in the debate. And by the way, the focus groups didn't get any better for Vance. To set the stage here, Vance tried to gaslight Americans into thinking that Kamala Harris somehow has the ability to dictate policy as the sitting vice president, and well, let's just say that that doesn't sit too well with this student.
We were talking, Marcus, about this constant criticism about the vice president not being able, about the vice president being in office for these last, he's already upset about it. The vice president being in office for all these years and not being able to make the change was the allegation from J.D. Vance. You said to me, I've been to high school civics class. Why did you say that?
Because if anybody took high school civics class, they'd know what the vice president can do and what the vice president can do. I want to make a quick point. Neither candidate on that stage talked about what executive action they're going to take on day one to do what they want, nor were they asked, because they know that they can't. That's not how the vice presidency works. You don't get to do what you want. You do what the president delegates you to do.
Not for nothing, but when you've got kids in school fact-checking your bullshit, you might have lost the plot. And finally, I know that a lot of the mainstream media pundits might suggest that J.D. Vance was the clear winner because, again, he's a smooth talker. But style isn't enough to overcome substance. And for some people who are truly undecided, and I'm not talking about the Republicans who think that Vance won or the Democrats who think that Walz won, both of which are justifiable positions, by the way, but the truly undecided voters are going to see that debate, and on the issue that truly matters, it's not going to matter how smooth Vance is if it becomes clear that his positions are just as extreme, just as dangerous, just as draconian as Donald Trump's. Not being able to acknowledge objective reality that Donald Trump lost the 2020 election is disqualifying. Full stop. The truth is that J.D. Vance was tasked with the unenviable job of cleaning up the mess created by Donald Trump, and made worse by his own disastrous VP campaign thus far. He needed to hit a home run, and the truth is that both candidates held their own, meaning, in effect, that by virtue of Vance failing to meaningfully move the needle, he didn't do his job. And so now, given the fact that Trump will, of course, not go anywhere near the debate stage with Kamala Harris again, one of the few smart decisions of the campaign, and without another VP debate, this was the last opportunity for a flailing Trump-Vance ticket to make its case to the American people. The closing message from Trump? Migrants are eating your pets. And the closing message from Vance? A refusal to acknowledge objective reality that Donald Trump lost the 2020 election. Delusion from top to bottom. The fish rots from the head, but it's clear after this last debate that the rot is spreading. Before you go, just a quick note, if you'd like to see more of my content, which is always free of advertising, sponsorships, and paywalls, please make sure to subscribe to this channel using the subscribe button right here on the screen. And if you'd like to support my work even further, you can grab a copy of my instant #1 New York Times selling book, Shameless, available for sale right now. That link is also on the screen. Thanks so much for watching.